Welcome to my inner speed build overview. Since there are so many different variants you can try for different purposes, I figured it might be a good idea to sum everything up. This isn't exactly a guide, as I won't go into too much detail on how to build or play all these versions, merely giving you an idea of what you can choose from depending on what you want to farm. We will gradually go up in difficulty with each consecutive build, so just feel free to use the timestamps to navigate to the ones that are most relevant for you. So let's just get started with the T16 builds, more precisely the ones for Nephalem Rifts. Our primary objective is of course to farm keys, and for that we need to get through the rift as fast as possible, and Inner Water Ally is one of the best builds in the game to do so. Since our damage is more than enough to instantly melt everything on T16, we instead focus on stacking as much movement speed as we possibly can, using all the different speed synergies available in the game. We also rely on a number of emanating effects from our follower, so gearing her is actually just as important as gearing yourself. The gameplay with the build is as easy as it gets. You just pop your Epiphany and start spamming dashing and Cyclone Strike to fly through the rift. If you would rather run instead of teleporting, then you can choose the Tempest Rush version. With this variant we use a Von Kim Lao as one of our weapons, and we stack even more movement speed thanks to our shards. The gameplay again is very simple. You just hold down your Tempest Rush while spamming your Mystic Ally and basically fly through the rift with crazy high movement speed. And of course there is the Bounty build, where instead of the Ingeon we rely on the 4-piece from the Rayman set to get infinite dashes. Since our dashing strike now costs spirit though, we need to stack high resource cost reduction and spirit regen, just to make sure that we can spam it freely. The only thing you really need to look out for when playing this build is to try to avoid depleting your spirit and after that your dashing strike charges completely, since then you will need to wait for the cooldown even if you have a bunch of spirit. This build can also be used for Nephalem Rift farming if you would rather play something like this instead of an Ingeon build. And now we have arrived at the GR speed builds, starting with, in my opinion, one of the most important of them all, the low tier water variant. Since the legendary cap is at tier 90, meaning you won't get more loot even if you clear a 150 rift, it is exceptionally important to have a build that can clear this tier as efficiently as possible, especially when you want to gear up a fresh character. With this build you will find the most legendaries per hour, which is also important since we have our seasonal theme, and finding a good amount of Hellforge Embers is also crucial to upgrade our shards. The build itself is basically the Nephalem Rift variant, just with damage gems and the bindings of the lesser gods. This of course means that the gameplay itself is rather similar too, which means that you are still just spamming your dashing and Cyclone Strike as you have your Epiphany up, while also making sure to press your generator every 5 seconds to get the damage from the Focus and Restraint set. The basic dual wield Water Ally variant is a solid choice if you are looking for quick and stable runs on slightly higher tiers. Compared to the previous builds, this version starts to stack high damage, with having the Okilt set, the Dregs of Lice, the Stiver of Terror and even a Flying Dragon in the cube, in exchange of course for some of the mobility. This is an Ingeon build and you need to have the buff up to be efficient, meaning your primary targets are elites above all else. When you found your elite, you use Cyclone Strike to pull everything on yourself while you hold down your generator and press your Serenity, and basically just wait for your allies to kill everything, and then you can move on. There is one very important thing that you have to keep in mind when playing this build, is to only press your Mystic Ally when you see that your allies are out of their swimming form. This is when your allies respawn, and it happens every 15 seconds, given of course you keep on attacking. When you see that a bunch of blue dudes are running next to you, then and only then should you press the Mystic Ally button. If you really like Water Ally and you want to go as high as you possibly can with it, then you should probably use the Daibo setup. This variant incorporates a Captain Crimson set and also an Essence of Anguish shard, on top of stacking high CDR. The build is very tanky and also deals high damage, but to achieve this it needs to give up a fair bit of mobility. And for this reason it is generally outshined by the fire variants, if you care about efficiency. The build has a quite satisfying and chill playstyle, where you slowly move through the rift while you basically destroy everything in your way, be it trash or elite. Since not having infinite dashes, you need to utilize your Epiphany teleports as much as you can. And of course, do not be too trigger happy with your Mystical Eye button, just the same way as with the dual wield version. And we have finally arrived at the realm of fire, with a bunch of extremely powerful builds. The dual wield Ingeon version is the most basic of them all, with being sufficiently tanky and fast, while also dealing a huge amount of damage, with the only drawback of being prone to downtimes if you make any mistake. Since it is an Ingeon dependent build, your primary targets are elites again. You first pop your Epiphany and then start teleporting around until you find your first elite. Jump on the elite with your Serenity up, while you hold down your generator, Cyclone Strike mobs on yourself and press the Mystical Eye button. You must be able to one-shot every elite pack, so choose the tier according to that. Once you have your Ingeon buff, then you can stop for bigger packs of trash and get a reset with your Messerschmitt. You always need to be aware that after you have blown up the screen, you might still have leftover allies that are ready to explode. So for this reason, always use your Cyclone Strike immediately when you approach new monsters. And this way you will get a bunch of freebie kills without triggering your Mystical Eye cooldown again. If you are looking for an alternate variant, then it is possible to use the Daibo with the Captain Crimson set here as well. This variant is overall slightly weaker than the dual wield version, but it is also much more forgiving if you make any mistake, since it stacks higher base CDR, and if you cannot finish off your targets, then it isn't the end of the world. Gameplay-wise, it is very similar to the dual wield version, with the only main difference being is that since we are not using a Sliver of Terror shard, we do not need to spam our abilities, only use them when we truly need to. If you really want to spice things up, then you can use a Tempest Rush setup for higher tier speed farming, since that is where this build starts to shine, as it doesn't require an Ingeon proc to do good stable damage. As long as you are hitting enemies with your Tempest Rush, you will get your Zodiac procs, and with that your Mystical Eye resets, while you get additional benefits due to running a channeling build. On the other hand, this is a very squishy setup that also runs a Fragment of Destruction, so if you would like to use this in hardcore, you have to be extra careful. As for the gameplay, you hold down your Tempest Rush when you are near mobs, stopping only for a single generator attack every 5 seconds, while you are also spamming your Mystical Eye and basically slowly grind down everything. If you don't mind going even a bit slower, then you might want to choose the Shenlong's variant, which in exchange clears by far the highest tiers. This is practically the Oak Hills push variant with different jewelry and high CDR, meaning it is capable to do smaller but much more frequent nukes. Gameplay-wise, it is very similar to the Ingeon Fire versions, you just also need to manage your Shenlongs. Once you found a big pack of enemies, preferably with an elite in it, just jump inside with your Serenity up, pull everything on yourself, and it is time to check for your Shenlong buff. If you see it's active, then just press your Mystical Eye button. But if it isn't and you also have low spirit, then attack with your generator for 1 or 2 extra seconds and then press the Mystical Eye button. With this build, it is especially important to utilize your leftover allies, meaning you quickly need to find additional monsters that you can use your Cyclone Strike on, to maximize the number of enemies you kill with each of your nukes, and with that get more Messerschmitt procs. If you want to have faster clears but on slightly lower tiers, then you can swap the Messerschmitt for an Ingeom and also the Sliver of Terror to a Fragment of Destruction. So this was my Ina speed build overview. I believe we have really good variety this time around, and I think that everyone can find a suitable build that they might enjoy running. If you need further information about each of these builds, I made separate videos with nearly all of them that either has voiceover or a detailed description that you might want to check. I'm also interested to hear which one of these is your favorite, so just feel free to leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, then giving a like and subscribing to the channel is always appreciated. See you next time.